Belegar Iron Hammer, except that you have 4 endgame armies on turn 11 and you don't have to pay any upkeep for these elite units. Belegar is a powerful legendary lord with a unique playstyle based around an ultra elite early game army with a core of ethereal ancestor heroes. Using Oathgoald crafting, you can quickly outfit your starting squad with a Master Rune of Spite for AoE damage to augment your Rune of Wrath and Ruin. You can also further augment your heroes' innate tankiness to ridiculous levels, eventually getting all of your heroes Iron Wardens tankards for health regeneration as well. Belegar's major handicap is a 50% increase to all unit upkeep until he's able to recapture his ancestral home of Carrick 8 Peaks. One option is just to rush Carrick 8 Peaks and use your elite starting army to take it as quickly as you can. This is a quick guide to an alternate start that fixes Belegar's money problems without needing to rush Carrick 8 Peaks. What I'm going to do in this campaign is trigger the Dwarf endgame A Grudge Too Far, which will make all of the major dwarf factions and some of the minor ones spawn a bunch of endgame elite armies that will have no upkeep costs. Tick the box to enable diplomacy for scenario factions. We can then confederate those dwarf factions and those free armies will become ours. In my campaign, for some extra challenge, I'm going to tick Ultimate Crisis Mode and enable a few of the other endgame scenarios as well. So I've got some powerful enemies to fight. I've got the turn timer set for 10 to 20 and no early warning timer, so there's no additional delay. You want the endgame difficulty on at least 50%. 50% should give you 1 free endgame army on each minor dwarf faction and 2 on each major. 200% should give you 8 endgame armies for each of the major factions and 4 endgame armies for each of the minor dwarf factions. What we're going to do is wait until after turn 10 when the endgame armies all spawn, and then we're going to use this special quest that Belegar gets to automatically confederate Carrick Herne. So Carrick Herne's in-game armies will become ours. There are a couple of other little tricks that we can do before then to give us an extra boost in the early campaign. First, we attack this greenskin army. Go into the battle and fight it manually, but then we're going to intentionally lose the battle. You can just concede defeat, but you might take some heavy losses on your expensive units. So instead, manually retreat all of your good units off the field so that you lose the battle when you've only got 1 cheap unit remaining. Losing the battle will give you a grudge to defeat that army. Join all your heroes back in, then attack them again and destroy them, complete the grudge and get an extra 30 Oathgoald on the first turn. Don't follow up and attack the greenskin settlement afterwards. If you get a second win against them, that will trigger your quest and you want to save that until after the endgame scenario. You should be able to force march back to Zarexil so you can get some replenishment on your army. Then build the refectory in Zarexil and also recruit a new lord and a couple of units. Triggered by you building the refectory, next turn Gotrek and Felix will spawn. You can use your new lord to move onto them and recruit them. Then move both Gotrek and Felix and your lord back to Zarexil, ready to underway under the mountains next turn. Belegar can move down towards Riffrafa. Make sure you're close enough to attack Riffrafa next turn. You can just go to war with Tilia if you like, they're not that strong, but Sartosa will generally attack and take Riffrafa on turn 2. So then you can actually attack Sartosa instead and keep Tilia as an ally. With your combined force, you should be able to easily auto-resolve against Aranessa, breaking the back of Sartosa faction and taking the settlement. You can recruit a couple more units or recruit a 4th lord at this point. Repair Riffrafa and build the Trinket Maker. Make sure that you're not going to go broke over the end turn. You can do some diplomacy with Tilia and the Border Princes just to get a little bit of extra cash to keep you fluid. On turn 4, you can move down and take Lucchini. Sartosa doesn't have a proper army anymore, so you don't have to worry too much about them. Once you take Lucchini, you should be able to pretty much get infinite money from diplomacy. This is a pretty dirty exploit, so you might not want to do this. Also, it gets kind of boring just infinitely creating money, but you might want to do it a little bit just to get a little bit of a bonus. Maybe cap yourself at a certain gold value so you don't ruin your fun for the rest of the campaign. Once you sell them Riffrafa, you can then trade Riffrafa back for Lucchini for almost nothing. Then you can trade them for Riffrafa back for Lucchini again. This time you can add 2,000 gold. Even though they haven't got any gold left, if you go into the add gold button, then you'll be able to manually put it up to 2,000. And you can just keep trading the settlements back and forth, losing a little bit of money on one trade, but getting much more on the other trade. If you enter into a defensive alliance or a military alliance with Tilia, they'll actually give you a better deal, so you can actually make money on the trade both ways. Don't do this if you don't want to, or do it as much as you like to get a little bit of bonus gold, which will be useful in helping you peace out with the other dwarf factions and help you work towards confederations later on. At this point, you don't really have much to do apart from just wait until the dwarf endgame happens. You can siege lock Sartosa with a single lord. When they sally out, you just retreat, and then next turn just siege them again. Then they won't be able to recruit any troops or do anything. You have to avoid any battles with the broken nose greenskins. Retreat from any battle if you can, or if you're forced to fight, then you have to concede. Make sure you lose the battle. You can't win any battles against them, otherwise you'll get the Confederation dilemma straight away. Now you just have to bide your time. Sometime between turn 10 and turn 20, the endgame dilemmas will pop. As soon as the endgame scenarios happen, Carrick Hearn will be awarded with 4 extra armies that will have no upkeep. This is when you want to attack the broken nose greenskins again and get that second victory. This will complete your starting quest that you've delayed until now, and finally give you that dilemma to confederate Carrick Hearn, but now with all of their endgame armies included in that confederation. Don't worry about any casualties that you take in this battle. You actually want to get rid of all of your forces down in the south and then re-recruit them at Carrick Hearn when they recover in 5 turns. The endgame armies will spawn with lords that are already high level, but you'll want to replace at least one of those with Belegar so that he can lead one of your free armies once he comes back. Disband all of your non-endgame armies if you like to reduce your military upkeep to 0. And from here, you're set to do epic battle with all of the other endgame factions that you've spawned. Or if you chose not to put in any other endgame scenarios except for the dwarfs, you can just peace out with the other dwarf factions and then lead a dwarf tide against the rest of the world. You should be able to buy peace with some of the dwarfs immediately, especially if you got a lot of money using the region trading exploit. But otherwise, if you just avoid the other dwarves, you should have reasonably good relations with them and be able to peace out with them and eventually form alliances and maybe confederations later on without having to spend a lot of money. Waiting for the endgame scenarios to trigger without being forced into a battle with the broken nose greenskins can be a bit awkward. You can save scum when the endgame scenario triggers. If you're siege locking Sartosa, you can just retreat from the battle and then attack Sartosa again. Initiating a new battle should give you a new siege. So if you save the game on turn 10, then you don't get the endgame scenario on turn 11, then you go back to turn 10, you retreat and attack again. So you have had 2 battles that turn. Then you go to the next turn, see if you get the end game. If you don't, you go back, retreat, attack again, meaning 3 battles, etc, etc. If you've got enough lords there so you can initiate enough battles, you should be able to trigger a bunch of different seeds and hopefully get the end game on the next turn. Obviously, you don't have to set up your game exactly the way I've set mine up here. You don't have to do all of those exploits that I did in this example, but hopefully this gives you a few ideas for your own campaign. I'm really looking forward to maybe doing a bit of a lo-fi version of this, maybe on 50% strength so that not all of the factions are in total overdrive, and maybe just have the dwarfs so that they're a little bit stronger than they normally would so that I have time to sort of confederate them. Maybe do the Skaven so that you get the special Vermintide quests so you can get the special army and heroes from that endgame scenario, and maybe also the Chaos Dwarf endgame scenario just so that you can have access to their tunnels. And also the Chaos Dwarves are kind of like a cool enemy to have Belegar go after once he's reclaimed Carrick 8 Peaks. But all of that will be a lot easier and you'll feel a lot more powerful having between 1 to 4 free armies depending on whether you put it on 50% strength or 200% strength for your endgame. I'm actually going to start a new Belegar campaign and live stream it immediately after I upload this video, so feel free to check that out if you want to see me attempt this live.
Yes, my king, today is a great day.